What are the 7 deadly sins, and could they keep you from entering heaven and grant you a one-way ticket to hell? First, we have pride. Pride is the excessive belief in one's abilities or superiority, leading to arrogance and rebellion against God. And the story of Lucifer's fall, as told in Isaiah chapter 14 verses 12 through 15, and Ezekiel chapter 28 verses 12 through 17, is the greatest example of this sin. The story of Lucifer's rebellion and fall from heaven is one of the most dramatic and awe-inspiring tales in Christian theology. Long before the earth was formed, the heavens were alive with the splendor of God's creations. Among the countless angels who served the Almighty, one stood above the rest. His name was Lucifer, meaning light-bearer. He was the most magnificent of all angels, a being of radiant beauty and wisdom, adorned with jewels and clothed in light. Lucifer's voice led the heavenly choirs in songs of praise, his presence a reflection of God's glory. Lucifer's role was unique. He was a cherub, one of the highest-ranking angels chosen to guard the throne of God. All of heaven admired him, but within the depths of his dazzling heart something dark began to stir. The universe pulsed with harmony, yet Lucifer felt a restlessness growing inside him. Each day, as he gazed upon the throne of God, a dangerous thought took root. Why should I serve when I am so magnificent? Why should I not sit upon the throne? He began to believe that his beauty, wisdom, and power were his own, not gifts from the Creator. The whispers of pride grew louder. I deserve to rule. I deserve to be equal to God. Lucifer's pride turned to ambition, and ambition to rebellion. He crafted a plan in secret, speaking in hushed tones to other angels. Why should we bow? He asked. Are we not mighty? Do we not deserve freedom to reign as we choose? A third of heaven's angels, captivated by Lucifer's charm and fiery words, agreed. Together they swore allegiance to him, believing that their cause was just. One day, the silence of heaven was shattered. Lucifer and his followers rose up in open defiance against the throne of God. His voice rang out bold and commanding, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will make myself like the Most High. The rebellion was swift, and heaven trembled. The loyal angels, led by the mighty archangel Michael, prepared for battle. The clash that followed was unlike anything the universe had ever seen. Angelic beings, once united in worship, now fought with blinding light and searing power. Swords of flame clashed, and the heavens echoed with the cries of war. Lucifer, the light-bearer, had transformed into the adversary, consumed by his pride. His beauty was now a weapon, his voice a rallying cry for defiance. But no creation, no matter how magnificent, could ever stand against the Creator. Michael, unwavering in his loyalty, confronted Lucifer. You dare defy the Almighty? He thundered, his sword blazing. The battle reached its climax as Michael and the loyal angels overpowered Lucifer's forces. Then, with a voice that shook the cosmos, God pronounced judgment. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. In an instant, Lucifer and his followers were cast out of heaven. Like a meteor blazing across the night sky, they fell, hurtling toward the earth. The ground quaked as they landed, their once radiant forms now twisted and darkened. Lucifer, stripped of his heavenly name, became Satan, meaning adversary. His followers became demons, their glory forever lost. Lucifer stood in the shadows of his new dominion, a kingdom far from the light of heaven. Though defeated, his pride remained unbroken. He vowed revenge, declaring war on God's most beloved creation, humanity. If I cannot rule heaven, he hissed, I will rule the earth. From that moment, Satan became the tempter, the deceiver, the father of lies. His sole purpose was to oppose God, to corrupt and destroy all that was good. Lucifer's fall is a story of pride, ambition, and rebellion against divine authority. It is a stark reminder that even the most exalted can fall when they forget their Creator. But it is also a tale of justice and hope. For though Satan roams the earth, his defeat is certain. The Bible promises that one day he will face his final judgment and be cast into the lake of fire, a place of eternal punishment. The devil, who deceived them, was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Lucifer's story is not just about an angel's fall, it is a cautionary tale for humanity. Pride, unchecked, can lead even the most favored to destruction. But just as Lucifer fell, so too can we rise if we remain humble and faithful to God. And so, the tale of Lucifer's fall is written in the heavens and echoed through the ages, a reminder that no one can rival the Most High. Second, we have greed. Greed is an insatiable desire for material wealth or gain at the expense of others. For just 30 pieces of silver, Judas Iscariot, one of Jesus' disciples, betrayed the Savior. Picture Judas clutching the cold, silver coins in his hand, thinking he had secured his future. Yet the weight of his betrayal soon crushed him. The same money that tempted him to sin became a symbol of his shame, and in despair, he threw the silver back before taking his own life. Greed promises satisfaction but delivers devastation. And of course, we can't forget lust, our third sin. Lust is an intense and uncontrolled desire, often of a sexual nature. Have you heard the Bible story of King David and Bathsheba? Imagine this. It was springtime, the season when kings typically led their armies to battle. But King David, ruler of Israel, and a man renowned for his courage and devotion to God, chose to remain in Jerusalem while his army waged war in distant lands under the command of Joab, his trusted general. From his palace terrace, David gazed over the city one evening, the golden glow of the setting sun casting long shadows across the rooftops below. As he looked down, his eyes fell upon a woman bathing on a nearby rooftop. The sight of her, her beauty radiant in the dim light, stirred something deep within him. David, captivated, asked a servant about her. The answer should have stopped him in his tracks. "She is Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite, one of your soldiers." But desire clouded David's judgment. He sent for her, and when she was brought to him, their encounter led to sin. Bathsheba returned home, but not long after, she sent word to David, "I am with child." David was shaken. This was not just a scandal, it was a potential disaster. Bathsheba was married to a loyal soldier fighting in David's army. Desperate to hide his sin, David devised a plan. He summoned Uriah from the battlefield under the pretense of inquiring about the war. "Go home to your wife," David urged after their meeting, hoping Uriah would spend the night with Bathsheba and later assume the child was his. But Uriah, loyal to his comrades still fighting, refused. "The ark, Israel and Judah are staying in tents. How could I go to my house to eat, drink, and lie with my wife while they endure hardship?" he said, his honor unshaken. David's frustration grew. The next day he tried again, even getting Uriah drunk, but the soldier remained steadfast, sleeping at the palace gate with the king's servants rather than going home. David realized his plan had failed. Driven to desperation, David took a darker path. He wrote a letter to Joab instructing him to place Uriah at the front lines of the fiercest battle and then withdraw, ensuring Uriah's death. The chilling irony, Uriah carried the letter, his own death warrant, to Joab. On the battlefield, Uriah fought valiantly as always, but the plan unfolded as David had ordered. Left exposed, Uriah was struck down and killed. News of his death reached David, who felt a fleeting sense of relief. After Bathsheba's mourning period, David brought her into the palace as his wife. To the outside world it may have appeared a gesture of compassion, but David knew the truth. God, however, was not blind to David's actions. He sent the prophet Nathan to confront the king. Nathan approached David with a story. There were two men in a city, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had many sheep and cattle, but the poor man had only one little lamb. He loved it like a daughter, letting it eat from his plate and drink from his cup. One day, a traveler came to the rich man. Instead of using one of his own sheep, the rich man took the poor man's lamb to prepare a meal for his guest. David, a man of justice at heart, burned with anger. "The man who did this deserves to die," he declared. Nathan's voice thundered, "You are that man." He revealed David's sins, his adultery with Bathsheba and the murder of Uriah. David's heart sank. The weight of his actions crashed over him like a tidal wave. Nathan pronounced God's judgment. While David would not die, the child Bathsheba carried would. David retreated to his chambers, broken and ashamed. He fell to his knees, crying out to God in anguish. His prayer, later immortalized in Psalm 51, was a desperate plea for mercy. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love. Blot out my transgressions. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Despite David's fasting and prayers, the child fell ill and died. David, though stricken with grief, accepted God's judgment. He rose from the ground, washed, and worshipped the Lord, knowing that while his sin had grave consequences, God's mercy was still within reach. Later, Bathsheba gave birth to another son, whom they named Solomon. God loved Solomon, and he would go on to become one of Israel's greatest kings, known for his wisdom and wealth. David's story is a profound reminder of human frailty. Though he was a man after God's own heart, even he stumbled. Yet his repentance and God's forgiveness highlight a powerful truth. No matter how great the sin, redemption is always possible for those who truly seek it. This story teaches us the consequences of lust, but also that God is merciful. Now, envy is our fourth sin. Envy is the resentment of another's blessings or success. And the story of Cain and Abel is a perfect example of this sin. The story begins in the quiet, early days of humanity. After Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, they began their life on earth, raising two sons. The eldest, Cain, was a farmer, tilling the soil and growing crops. The younger, Abel, was a shepherd, tending to flocks of sheep that grazed on the open hills. The two brothers lived their lives side by side, but their hearts could not have been more different. One day both brothers brought offerings to the Lord to honor him. Cain, who worked the land, presented an offering of fruit, likely the best of his harvest. Abel, however, brought the firstborn of his flock, carefully selecting the choicest portions. The air was thick with the scent of burning offerings as the two sacrifices rose to heaven. God looked upon Abel and his offering with favor. Abel's heart was pure, and his sacrifice reflected his deep love and reverence for the Creator. But Cain's offering, though outwardly fine, was rejected. Cain's heart was filled with pride and bitterness, and his offering lacked the sincerity and devotion that God desired. Cain's face darkened, his jaw tightening as jealousy and anger began to fester within him. The rejection stung. Why Abel? Why not me? The Lord, seeing Cain's turmoil, spoke to him. His voice was both firm and gentle, like a father guiding a wayward child. Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. God's words were a warning, a lifeline, but Cain, consumed by envy, ignored them. Instead of addressing his own heart, he allowed bitterness to grow, twisting his thoughts. One day, Cain approached Abel. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "Let's go out to the field," he said. Abel, unsuspecting, agreed. The brothers walked together, the sun shining brightly overhead, its warmth contrasting with the storm brewing in Cain's heart. Once they were far from sight, Cain's rage exploded. He attacked Abel, striking him down in a fit of fury. Abel's cries echoed briefly across the open field, then fell silent. The ground, once a source of life for Cain's crops, now drank the blood of his brother. Cain stood over Abel's lifeless body, his hands trembling. The deed was done, but instead of relief, an unbearable weight pressed down on him. He had become the first murderer in human history. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the earth, God's voice called out to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain's heart raced. He tried to deflect the question with a bitter response. "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" But God's voice thundered, filled with both sorrow and justice. "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood. When you work the soil, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." Cain's arrogance crumbled into despair. "My punishment is more than I can bear," he cried. "Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. Whoever finds me will kill me." But even in his judgment, God showed mercy. "Not so," he said. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. The Lord placed a mark on Cain, a sign of his protection, so no one would harm him. And so Cain left the presence of the Lord, a restless wanderer on the earth. The fields he had once cultivated with pride were now a bitter memory. He settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden, carrying the weight of his guilt and the mark of God's mercy. The ground that had swallowed Abel's blood served as a silent witness to the tragedy, a story of jealousy, unchecked anger, and the devastating consequences of sin. But even in this tale of darkness there was a glimmer of light. God's mercy, which persisted even in the face of humanity's first great sin. This story, though brief, echoes through history as a warning of the dangers of envy and anger, and a reminder of God's justice and grace. Cain and Abel's tale continues to ask us, will we choose the path of humility and love, or will we allow sin to crouch at our door? Gluttony is our 5th sin. Gluttony is the overindulgence in food, drink, or earthly pleasures, ignoring self-control. The Israelites, tired of manna, complained to God for meat. God sent quail, but their greed led them to gorge themselves without restraint. As they ate, a plague struck, killing many. Imagine the scene: people still holding meat in their hands as life left their bodies. Their overindulgence turned God's blessing into judgment. This story warns against turning blessings into curses through lack of moderation. Wrath is uncontrolled anger and hatred that seeks revenge or destruction. Moses, frustrated with the Israelites' constant complaints, struck the rock in anger to bring forth water, disobeying God's instruction to speak to the rock. Though water gushed out, God rebuked Moses, barring him from entering the promised land. The image of Moses standing on the mountain, gazing at the promised land he could not enter, serves as a sobering reminder that even righteous anger can lead to severe consequences when it goes unchecked. Sloth is laziness or the failure to do what one should, especially in spiritual matters. A master entrusted 3 servants with talents, money, before leaving. 2 invested and multiplied theirs, but the third, out of laziness and fear, buried his in the ground. On the master's return, the unproductive servant was cast out. Imagine the regret on the servant's face as he was labeled wicked and lazy. This parable teaches that neglecting our responsibilities, especially those given by God, leads to wasted potential and judgment. Each story underscores the destructive nature of the 7 deadly sins, illustrating how they distance us from God and harm our relationships with others. The Bible warns us not only to avoid these sins but to cultivate their virtues: humility, generosity, chastity, kindness, temperance, patience, and diligence. Which of these stories resonated with you the most? Comment below, and remember to share, like, and subscribe. Until next time.